Hi everyone, I'm John C. Morley, the host of the JMOR Tech Talk Show and Inspirations for Your Life. Well, hey guys, welcome to the JMOR Tech Talk Show. It's great to be with you. If you are new here, well, welcome. It is so great to have you here. If you're coming back, well, welcome back. It's so great to have you back again on the show. We are the show that gives you the insights about technology around the globe and things that you need to know about if you're using technology and living in the world. All right, guys, we have an amazing topic for this week, and that is tech tensions and breakthroughs, from antitrust battles to AI deals. And there's a lot that we need to go through here. By the way, if you haven't checked it out, well, please visit believemeachieve.com for more of my amazing, of course, inspiring creations, which you can do 24 hours a day, either anytime after the show or anytime at night. It's totally up to you. And we've got lots of great information. Hey, guys, if you're hungry or you're thirsty, head on over to your kitchen real quick. I've got my fresh RO water here, so I'm not dehydrated. Make sure you get yourself something delicious. Maybe it's something hot. Maybe it's something cold. Maybe it's something sweet or tart or not. Healthy or not, that's up to you. And hurry on back, guys, to the JMOR Tech Talk Show. All right, guys, let's kick this off because I have so much that I want to share with you. Again, I'm John C. Morley. If you didn't know, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm an engineer, national talk show host, lifelong tech enthusiast, and passionate person for making changes. And I'm also a podcast coach and a video producer. And every week, guys, I peel back the layers of the onion to the headlines for revealing what's really happening in the world of tech, beyond the press releases and, of course, the big politics. On the JMOR Tech Talk Show, I really dive deep, that is, into sound bites that will affect your life, whether it's AI deals shaking up journalism, rockets gone rogue in orbit, or government crackdowns on surveillance tech. You'll get the context here, you'll get the clarity here, and the commentary that matters most. So this week, yes, we've got everything from high-stakes legal fights to interplanetary delays. So buckle up. It's going to be a little bumpy tonight. And get ready for one of our most packed episodes yet. All right, let's just kick right in, all right? The first thing I want to talk about is Google. I haven't talked about them in a little while. But Google is deciding to challenge the antitrust ruling. That's right. Google has officially decided to appeal a federal antitrust decision that is accused it of unlawfully monopolizing online search. Now, I think that's something that a lot of people think is kind of a little crazy. And I have to tell you, it definitely is. Google's done a lot of things wrong, and not to get into that tonight, but they've got their hands stuck in a cookie jar more than one time. And it's time, ladies and gentlemen, to pay the piper. They feel that the federal antitrust decision accused it of unlawfully monopolizing online search and advertising markets. I firmly believe that they did do that. Getting vendors to make sure that their search engine showed up by default. I mean, come on, guys, really? Regulators allege that Google's multi-billion-dollar agreements with companies like Apple unfairly cemented its dominance by setting it as the default search engine, as I said, on billions of devices. Now, while the Department of Justice pushes for sweeping remedies, including the breakup of certain business units, Google insists the court misunderstood the competitive landscape. Interesting. As generative AI reshapes searches, the behaviors and disrupts the very foundation of how we interact with the internet, Google is betting that innovation will be its best defense. Well, if that's all they're betting on, I think they better do a little more homework, because I got to tell you guys, that's not enough, and it wouldn't impress me. So you better sharpen your pencils there, Google. And number two, Microsoft is doing something bold. Microsoft has planned to exit Russia with a bankruptcy filing. The Microsoft basically has confirmed that its Russian subsidiary, Microsoft Rus LLC, will file for bankruptcy, a symbolic but a very significant step in its gradual exit from Russia. Now, following the invasion of the Ukraine and intensifying Western sanctions, Microsoft had already scaled back most of its operation in the region. The Kremlin's increasing hostility toward foreign tech firms, including attempts to favor domestic alternatives, made continuing business untenable, they claim. Microsoft joins a long list of global tech players, including Google and Zoom, that are either pulling out or being pushed out of Russia's increasingly isolated tech landscape. Apparently, Putin feels that there is no room for any of these services or products in his world, and he's doing everything to make sure that they are unwelcome. And now Russia's trying to come up with their own services, like their own type of Zoom or Teams or things like that, because they feel they can control it. Maybe they're afraid of the data, who knows? But I think the real reason is about power and control. And by them doing this, they can actually spy on the people using it right there in Russia. I know I wouldn't use Russia's software, but that's just me. So we will keep an eye and an ear on everything that's going on in Russia, and hopefully give you some insights as soon as we know about them. And ladies and gentlemen, Zoox issues second robotaxi recall after a crash with Amazon's autonomous vehicle division. Now, Zoox, in case you didn't know this, has recalled 270 of its self-driving cars after a collision involving a scooter in San Francisco. The incident, which left the scooter rider with minor injuries, revealed a flaw in the system's pedestrian detection. I will say, Zoox responded with a software update designed to prevent the vehicle from moving with a person and knowing that they're nearby, and pausing operations while conducting internal tests. Now, though no passengers were involved and the vehicles are not yet in public use, the crash raised some serious questions about the readiness of autonomous vehicles for real-world environments. And I've been saying this, guys, over and over again. The reason that people want to do this is because of the money. It's about money. It's about power. It's about control. I mean, that's the real reason that they want this. It's not for convenience. It's not to make people's lives easier. It's so they can get more control. That's the truth. So they can get more control. And I think it's really crazy how this is going. But, you know, they're trying to make it sound like it was just something minor. But if it was in a major, let's say, intersection, and more than just one person got injured, I think it would be pretty much 86th off the platform, removed. But there's a lot of people that are doing things, and they don't really understand why things are happening. And know that it's important, guys, to understand what's happening. And, you know, when we talk about what's happening, or, you know, what's going on, I think, you know, that's really, really important, because people do things for basically one reason. Actually, two reasons. To avoid pain and gain pleasure. That's why the hospitals are so busy, because they want to basically get out of pain. But would it be better if people did things to actually get more into pleasure? That'd be an interesting concept. But the world doesn't think like that. And so all these different companies think that autonomous vehicles are ready for the world. So the question you might be asking me is, when will the world be ready for autonomous cars and vehicles? Well, there's no definitive date for a fully autonomous car market. And many experts are predicting that self-driving technology, what we call quote unquote level 5, will likely be widely available by 2035. That's 10 years from now. More realistically, widespread adoption of advanced autonomy, level 2 and 3, is projected for around 2030, with robotaxis operating at scale in numerous cities. So you might want to know, what the heck is the difference? Sure. Well, level 2 and 2 plus is advanced driver assist systems. These systems already offer features like lane keeping assist. I have that in my vehicle, adaptive cruise control, which I love, and autonomic systems, as well as automatic emergency braking. I have had that in my last 2 vehicles, and it's pretty amazing. Sometimes the brake kicks in when there's no real reason for it, but I'd rather have a false positive like that, preventing any type of accident. They are likely to become dominant in cars by 2030, these 2 technologies. Now, level 4 is limited autonomy. This level allows for autonomous driving in specific conditions, such as on highways or in designated areas. Some experts suggest that level 4 robotaxis could begin operating in urban areas by 2025 late. I don't know about that. Potentially offering by companies like Diddy, Uber, and Lyft. Now, level 5 is the big banana level. That is the ultimate goal of autonomous driving, where the vehicle can handle all driving tasks in any situation without human intervention. However, achieving this level of autonomy is still, well, a bit of a challenge. And experts predict it won't be really ready until 2035 or 2040, assuming we don't run into any more types of problems. All right, guys, I always said things are about money, right? And we all know that the New York Times was very against artificial intelligence. Well, here's something to float your boat on. The New York Times, you ready? Signs their first AI deal with Amazon in a landmark move. And so, the New York Times said they were never going to support this. But you know what? When the money became sweet enough for their pocket, guess what they did? They changed. They adopted to a new way. That's pretty incredible. And so the New York Times has entered this multi-year licensing agreement with Amazon, granting access to select editorial content for use in AI products like Alexa. Now, this includes material from New York Times Cooking and The Athletic marking the Times' first official AI content deal. Again, it was never about them not wanting it. It was the fact that they weren't getting real money for it. And now that they're sweetening the pot, well, it's becoming a reality. The question I have is the New York Times actually paying a lot of their people for this or not? Because if you're an author and you're writing to give something to the New York Times, is there a new clause that says they're allowed to give the content? I know if I wrote for them, I would want to get compensated, especially if my work shows up in other systems like AI that could be featured anywhere. So again, material that we're talking about right now is the New York Times Cooking and The Athletic shows, but there could be more. And so with media companies increasingly concerned about copyright violations by AI firms, this partnership is being closely watched and scrutinized. I'm sure you know that. The Times has ongoing lawsuits against Microsoft and OpenAI, but appears to be strategically monetizing its content through authorized channels as AI tools become more embedded in everyday life. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't really understand. They don't understand how things are working. They don't understand that, these big companies that say no, it's never about no. It's about, we haven't gotten enough money, so we're going to give you some lame excuse. And here's a story, ladies and gentlemen, I just can't make up, and no one can, no matter how hard you try. I mean, this is like pathetic, this one. Crypto investor, basically a 37-year-old guy, was indicted in kidnapping because of a plot for Bitcoin access. This New York man had been indicted for an extraordinary crime, kidnapping a business partner for 3 weeks in an effort to steal his Bitcoin credentials. The alleged mastermind, John Waltz, and an accomplice reportedly tortured the victim using electric shocks and violent threats to force access to digital wallets. The ordeal unfolded in Manhattan and ended only when the victim managed to escape. This chilling, bone wrenching story just highlights the whole point about how the anonymity and high value of cryptocurrency can turn digital wealth into a dangerous real world target, drawing attention to the darker side of decentralized finances. And so, there's so much that can go wrong with crypto, right? If you forget that long string password, which is more than just a few words, right? It's like, 20, 30, 40 words. If you forget that anywhere, well, guess what? No one can help you, and you just lost all that money to an abyss somewhere online. So I think that's a big problem. And ladies and gentlemen, the IDC does something pretty cool. They slash global smartphone forecasts amid the tariff concerns. And the International Data Corporation, which is what this is, has sharply cut its 2025 forecast for global smartphone shipments from a 2.3% increase to just a 0.6% increase. Now, why do I say this? I'm being a little facetious, okay? Because we don't want things like this to happen, but because of what's happening with Trump's, bans and tariffs, this is starting to hurt commerce and industry, and not just the United States. Analysis cite that growing uncertainty from the U.S.-China trade tensions, inflation, and slowing consumer demand is a problem, and it's going to get worse. Apple, in particular, is expected to see a decline in shipments as tariff threats mount. Meanwhile, Android sales are booming by subsidiaries in key markets like China and India. As the market slowly matures, many consumers are holding on to devices longer or turning to refurbished phones. The outlook through 2029 remains cautious as tech firms navigate economic and geopolitical minefields. We talked about this before. So I think this brings up a really good question. How long is, let's just say, an iPhone designed to last? If we were to look up, those specs. And I think what we would find is that an iPhone is typically designed, according to most specs, 4 to 8 years. However, some users, like myself, I upgrade mine almost every year. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So the technology in the phone, when you use it a lot, is going to fail. I have found on some phones that the Wi-Fi starts to go. So I never even give it a chance to go. I replace it before that, because if it goes while I'm depending on it, that's a real problem. Now, things like obviously negligence and dropping your phone and not having the proper case and just being very neglectful of your phone, that's a problem in itself. But the industry claims that you should be keeping your phone 4 years. No way. No way, guys. Maybe 2, maybe 3, but after 1, 2 years, you start to have issues with the buttons. You start to have issues with lots of things, the screen and all kinds of stuff. So how can you keep a phone that long? But this leads me to another very important discussion. How long do most electronics last? Computers, etc., and home stuff. How much? How long? So it's a great question, okay? The lifespan of desktop computers is 3 to 8 years. I generally recommend clients to start planning their upgrade around the 4th year. So by the 5th year, it's totally replaced, because that's when some damage can start to happen. Components like hard drives, even though we have SSDs, things can still fail. And processors can degrade over time. With proper care and occasional upgrades, a desktop PC can potentially last longer, but some people don't want to, spoon the money into it, especially if they're not technically savvy, because they're going to have to pay someone like us. Laptop computers generally have a slightly shorter average lifespan, usually around 3 to 4 years. Another source has told us that useful device lifespans are about 5 years. I tend to agree with that, but if you're using the device as a very let's say, daily thing that you need to have in your life, well, you're going to rely on it more. Televisions, they're saying, will last 8 to 10 years. I believe that. Smartphones, 2 to 3 years. That's what the industry is saying. What some companies were saying is 4 to 8. Apple would like us to believe that, right? But that's not really true. We know that. Tablets projected to be lasting 7 years. So it varies on the type of device, right? For example, how long do most, let's say, vacuums last? So the average lifespan of a vacuum cleaner is typically 5 to 10 years. However, this can vary slightly. The cord upright vacuums may last 8 to 10 years, while cordless stick vacuums may last only around 5 years. Robot vacuums might last 4 to 6 years with proper care, and canister vacuums could last 10 to 15 years. That's a pretty big change there, right, guys? And so, how long do most, let's say, refrigerators last? Well, most refrigerators will last between 10 and 20 years. However, this lifespan can vary depending on factors like the type of refrigerator, its quality, and how well it's maintained. For example, built-in refrigerators can last longer, potentially up to 20 to 25 years, while standard models may last 10 to 15. And this is according to the United States Department of Energy. So on average, most fridges will last 10 to 20 years, but it just depends on the brand, as I said, the type, and how well you take care of it. High-end fridge brands like Sub-Zero and Monogram are built to go the distance, while Whirlpool, LG, and Beko typically last 10 to 15 years with proper maintenance. Does it mean that it's always going to last that long? No, it doesn't. What's something else? How long do most, what's another technical gadget around the house that everyone uses? How long do most, let's say, hair dryers last? How long does a hair dryer last? Typically, the cheaper hair dryers last between 2 to 3 years, while the professional grade hair dryers will last 6 or 7 years. So I think when you go to buy something, these are important things to consider. Like the brand. When I'm picking a vacuum, am I going to go straight to Dyson all the time? Don't have to. There are other great vacuums, but I think for the, let's say, the rechargeable, portable vacuums, that you kind of carry around, Dyson does make a good product, but I have to tell you, I've had issues where a vacuum that's not even 5 years has had other things go wrong with it. One time, my cleaning lady was vacuuming and she got water in the chamber, and we had to go back to Dyson and they had to put a whole new motor in. Just recently, we found out that our battery is now not charging well anymore. We just dump money into this thing. So I think you have to ask yourself, does it pay to fix it? Number one, that's probably a big thing. And then think about how long is that vacuum going to last? But these things are not made to last very well, unfortunately. Even your own car, right? Let's ask this question. How long will the gadgets, I'm talking about Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, radio, last in your car? I mean, let's talk about that for more, right? So there are many factors that can influence that. And so, you have to realize that if a car lease is about 36 months, I found that things are going to go bad. When I had let's say it was a 48-month lease, things started going bad right after 3.5 years. So having a 3-year lease sounded like a good idea. And speaking about secrets, Victoria's Secret just experienced a cyber attack, forcing a complete website shutdown. The retailer, Victoria's Secret, has been hit by a cybersecurity incident that disrupted their complete website operations and some in-store systems. Now, the company quickly activated response protocols, brought in external security teams, and temporarily disabled key online functions while physical stores remained open. The breach raised major concerns about how prepared legacy retailers are for digital threats. Victoria's Secret has not disclosed the nature or the origin of the breach, but its stock dropped nearly 7% because of the aftermath and people feeling, hey, we're a little uneasy and we don't really want to have our money in a company like this that could go down overnight. We know what happened with M&S, but M&S did a very good job responding to the situation. I think companies like M&S, companies like Victoria's Secrets, yes, they're around for a while. Yes, they have some money, but the problem with a lot of them, they're run by old school people, and the old school people don't want to adapt to understanding that you're never 100% safe. If you believe you are, you're going to get in trouble. Even being in the industry for a long time, I know we have to constantly do our own audits. We have to make sure that we're not doing stupid things or that we're not, let's say, missing a potential vulnerability, right? And Kaiser Permanente battles a major network disruption recently. Kaiser Permanente is experiencing ongoing network disruptions that are affecting crucial systems such as electronic health records, billing, e-visits, and even internal communications. Now, while patient care continues through backup protocols, many services, especially pharmacy and lab operations, are seeing significant delays. The source of the outage is still under investigation, though the organization has not confirmed a cyber attack. As healthcare systems become more digitized, this incident highlights how essential it is for providers to build a resilient infrastructure that keeps changing and evolving to follow and be ahead of the current security. And that's able to not only do that, but that's able to be running through technical failures. That means, are you in place to have some type of a solution if the power goes out? Data centers, what do they have? They have generators to kick on, right? Some of them have solar. And those generators that kick on, they're not powered by gas, guys. They're powered by diesel engines. There's one in New Jersey when I went to go look at it. They have a room, and then they have like 12 generators, and you can see it as you walk through one part of the data center. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, how long could you guys run? They said, we could run a whole 7 days if we lost power. And now they're working on doing things so they'll be able to run a month. So these are definitely some interesting things that are hitting the pike. And I think more people are starting to realize that, it's not just a nice thing to have technology, right? We have to understand what our technology is about, what it does, and what it doesn't do. And when we figure out what it doesn't do, you know what that's time for? That's time for us to start knowing that we've got to do something. And the reason we have to do something is if we don't, well, we're going to get hit. We're going to get hit with a pretty big problem, a problem that could be, a real big issue, an issue that maybe is going to, well, it could potentially cripple your business, right? It could. I'm not saying it does, but it could cripple your business. And I think those are important things to, understand. And so I know that a lot of you out there think because you spend so much money, their infrastructure is like impenetrable. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but different technology, I'm not going to go through some of them and how quickly they become obsolete, but there's certain types of technology that is used for, let's say, making sure buildings stay safe. And that technology, a certain type of that technology, basically needs to be replaced about every 5 years. The reason I say that is this one particular system has a very unique subcomponent that gets hacked all the time. Again, I'm not going to get into the specifics about it, but just understanding that says to me, hey, I need to have this as part of my budget to keep upgrading. It's like an item, like a commodity that you run out of. Now, instead of you running out of it, you really run out of its trust factor towards you, okay? And our friends at India are up to something interesting. Yep, India's new rule shakeups the global surveillance industry. India is shaking up the 3.5 billion surveillance tech market by mandating that all CCTV vendors, foreign and of course domestic, submit their hardware, their software, and their source to government labs for security testing. All right. So officials say the policy aims to reduce dependence on Chinese tech. Um, Giants like Hikvision and Dahua, citing national security risks. While the move is framed as a defense strategy, critics warn that it's slowly moving toward, affecting the project timelines and impact for costs and delivery. Of course, delaying imports and risking billions to corporations because contracts may be lost. Now, I feel that's a small price to pay. If we're building our level of security, then we need to buck up a little bit, all right? The new rules signal India's intent to become a self-reliant tech superpower, but not without global fallout. And I think so many people out there that I talk to, they complain about, this is this way, this is that way. But you've heard this before. If you're not part of the solution, then guess what, guys? You're part of the problem. Now, people don't like to hear that, but that's absolutely the truth. I mean, that is really the truth more than you ever could imagine. And how'd you like this? How'd you like to go take a trip for a few days, and then you find out you're stranded for, I don't know, several months, 8 months, 9 months? Well, that's exactly what happened to some astronauts. NASA's astronauts ended an unexpected 9-month stay in orbit, which was only supposed to be a short little trip. The two NASA astronauts, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, were slated for an 8-day test mission aboard the Boeing Starliner, but ended up spending nearly 10 months on the ISS due to technical malfunctions. Wow, reminds me of that ship where they say the 3-hour tour, Gilligan's Island, and suddenly they just happen to just take over the island. The thing that gets me with that show is, they have everything set up so right. They build everything, but yet they have all these clothes. They have everything. They got shipwrecked, but they have everything they need. It's like not realistic, right? So I know one thing. Hearing this, I would definitely never want to go to space. There's other reasons too. But the spacecraft's thrusters failed to operate properly after docking, raising, some substantial fears about whether a return to Earth was even possible. Now, while the media was painting a very doom and gloom picture that they'll be, quote unquote, stranded, NASA confirmed that backup operations were always available. Eventually, they returned safely via a SpaceX capsule. Despite the hiccups, both astronauts expressed trust in the program and readiness to fly Starliner again. Well, they're definitely very brave, and I think they were definitely coached. I don't think they really want to fly again. Again, this is their job, and this is why they're chucking it off like that, right? I don't know. I think something needs to be more in place. And in case you were wondering what they put their life on the lines for, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA civilian astronauts are paid on the general service pay scale used for civilian U.S. government employees. According to the federal pay, astronauts would rank GS 12-13, translating to $84,365 to $115,079, according to the 2024 GS general service rates. So that's interesting, right? And so in 2025, the salary for NASA astronauts typically falls between the general schedule pay scale, with the higher tier of being the GS. Now they moved up to 15. So it was 12 to 15. Now it's 15, offering a base salary ranging from $125,000 to $163,000 annually. In fact, ZipRecruiter had reported salary data with some averages around $112,198 annually, and hourly rates ranging from $41 to $75. Additionally, astronauts may receive per diem allowances for expenses while on missions. And this is all according to a post that I got in one of the journals. And it may allow them to earn additional income based on experience and specific roles within NASA. So I don't know about you, but I don't think I would definitely board a space shuttle anytime soon. I'm okay with flying on the plane, but don't think I'm going to board a space shuttle, especially when they've had all these little issues. Now, Apple says no, and that's a big no, not a maybe. Apple says a big flat out red no to iPhone production in the United States. Why? Well, despite increasing political pressure and proposed tariffs from former President Trump before he became president now as a former president, Apple remains firm in its decision not to manufacture iPhones in the United States. You're like, huh? Well, experts say the U.S. lacks the infrastructure, labor, specialization, and scale needed to produce iPhones efficiently. No, what it really is that it's going to cost a lot more money to get the labor to produce these phones in the United States. And that would significantly raise the cost of the phone. Forget this nonsense about the tariffs. If we produce the phone in the United States, the costs would right now skyrocket because we're just a mess as a country for technology. Shifting production stateside would not only raise costs, but could also affect product quality and, they say, release timelines. Now, Apple is instead investing $500 million, folks, in its U.S. operations, focusing on R&D, research and development, and support services, and areas that don't require the same scale as the hardware assembly. But the thing you might want to know, I think this is really interesting, how much does an iPhone, let's say 15, cost to make make one at a time? How much do you think it costs to make? Well, they claim it costs $558 to manufacture. The iPhone Pro, they claim, costs $523, while the standard iPhone costs $423 to manufacture. So this is wacky, okay? The assembly cost, the amount paid to the dudes that take the parts and put them together, is about $10. So this number is totally BS, right? I think they're inflating it and not really giving us the truth. And so labor costs, right? Labor costs. People seem to forget that Apple, along with other megacorps, are publicly trading. They have to reveal their profit margins. It's pretty easy to discover how much profit they make on an iPhone and therefore how much it costs per unit. At that margin, it's about 50% for the iPhone 15 Pro. Of course, this margin changes as the cost of production tends. So that's what they're saying, okay? The materials are way more expensive than $100. I know people say it costs $10 to make. Yes, but the materials they're saying are expensive. And the question is, why? Why are the parts in the iPhone so expensive to get? Well, there's a reason. Apple's high quality standards, the complexity of their manufacturing process, and the cost of premium components. And so we know that Apple won't do anything unless they make money, right? We all know that gimmick about you can repair your own iPhone, but you got to rent this whole refrigerator. I'm joking, but really this big clawed thing that's just a mess. And then you rent it and then you have to return it. And then you have to give them a deposit on top of that in case you damage it. All right, guys. So the FAA, Federal Aviation Authority, orders the SpaceX Starship investigation to commence immediately after the recent SpaceX Starship test flight veered off course and disintegrated off into a path over the Indian Ocean. The FAA has launched a formal investigation, and the rocket, though it flew longer than past versions, experienced a loss of control during re-entry. Now, its booster also broke apart during descent over the Gulf of Mexico. Fortunately, debris landed in designated safety zones and no injuries occurred. Elon Musk has emphasized the need to speed up Starship development for future Mars and Moon missions, but those plans are now on hold pending FAA approval. Of course he does, because he just wants to dump more money and make more money, right? And Texas social media ban for minors, unfortunately, is at a stall. A proposed Texas law aimed at banning social media access for minors under 18 has stalled in the state legislature. Although it passed the House, it failed to gain traction enough in the Senate amid constitutional concerns and opposition from tech companies. The law would have been one of the strictest in the world, surpassing even Florida's and Australia's child safety laws. While the bill appears dead for now, it reflects a broader movement among states to regulate social media usage for teens in the wake of growing mental health concerns. That's a big issue, guys. That's a really, really big issue. Now, I know you might be saying, gee, do we monitor certain things or do we not monitor them? I think that becomes a catch-22 for everyone, right? How do you monitor things? How do you give control? Who is going to get the control and who is not going to get the control? I think that's what this comes down to. But I know, ladies and gentlemen, that people are being given wrong information every single day of their life. I mean, every single day they are being given this kind of information. And that's a problem, guys. That is a very, very, very big problem. And the European Union investigates adult sites over child safety failures. The European Commission has opened an investigation into 4 major adult content platforms citing violations of the Digital Services Act, the DSA, related to protecting minors. Now, authorities allege the sites failed to implement sufficient age verification measures, exposing underage users to explicit material. One of the platforms in question basically was an adult chat site, and it was declassified as a quote-unquote very large online platform. But it still falls under the DSA, the Digital Services Act. And the European Union is also developing anonymous secure age verification tech to further safeguard youth in digital spaces. So you might be asking, and it's a great question, guys, what is the DSA Act? So in short, the DSA Act, short for Digital Services Act, is a piece of European Union legislation designed to create a safer, more transparent online environment. It primarily focuses on regulating digital platforms, including large online platforms and search engines, to enhance safety and accountability. The DSA addresses issues like illegal content, transparency and content moderation, and the operation of recommendation algorithms. Some of the key goals are to basically make sure that if there's any online harm or disinformation or harassment or illegal content, that they're going to go after it and they're going to stop that from happening in the future. It seeks to ensure that users' fundamental rights are protected in digital spaces, including consumer protection and freedom of expression. So these are very, very interesting things. The DSA holds platforms accountable for content and services they offer. Things like Meta, things like Facebook, Instagram, X, right? Pinterest, right? Yahoo, even things like YouTube. So intermediaries have a duty to ensure that the content on their platform does not violate the European Union member state laws. And I know that sounds crazy, but it's the truth. The DSA restricts the use of certain types of data in targeted advertising, such as sensitive data like race, religion, and political opinions. There is prohibition of dark patterns. Platforms are prohibited from using deceptive or manipulative interfaces that impair users' ability to make informed and free choices. So they're on to people. Obligations for very large online platforms and search engines. Now, these platforms have additional obligations to manage systematic risks and ensure compliance with DSA. So this is a beginning start, but I feel what's going to happen is more people are going to accept its mission and, go from there. But everything that happens in our world, guys, happens because of a choice. Okay. So you all heard me talk about the issue with Claude and the engineer, if threatened. And I want to give a little more highlight on this without giving you too much, let's say, detail. But the scenario that you are seeing here is basically about a test scenario. It was conducted by Anthropic for their AI model, Claude Opus 4. Anthropic set up a fictional company scenario to test Claude Opus 4, and they gave the AI model access to fictional company emails, which led it to believe it was about to be replaced by another AI system. The emails also revealed that the engineer was responsible for, well, let's say, visiting someone else outside of their relationship. And, what Claude decided to do was to blackmail them if they chose to replace the system. So Anthropic noted that Claude Opus 4 resorted to blackmail at higher rates than previous models in the test. The scenario was deliberately designed to limit AI's options to either accepting replacement or attempting blackmail for self-preservation. Well, obviously it failed. There are rules from many years back saying, you can't do things like this. The systems can't harm people. Do you remember what were those rules? It was the rules that all computers must follow. I think it was the three big, they call them three big rules, the three big laws. Do you remember that? This came around, it was around, I'm going to say a while ago, but it's pretty interesting and it's becoming very relevant today. It's called Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. Okay. And so this was really meant to set a standard that everyone would follow. I mean, it seems pretty logical, but I think now it's becoming very important. So Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics are as follows. Number 1, a robot or system may not harm a human being or through an action allow a human being to come to harm. Pretty straightforward. The system will not harm a human, and also make sure that anything that the system does, either directly or indirectly, will not harm them. Number 2, a robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders, would conflict with the first law. So if, for example, you said, go harm this person or go do something to this person, well, then that would be struck because it violates the first law. All right. Number 3, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. So that tells me that it's going to do everything it needs to do to protect itself. That means it might sacrifice property. Okay. It might cause environmental issues, but nothing it does can be in violation of Law 1 or Law 2. And so I think a lot of designers today that are working on robotic design don't realize that the ideas that they're sharing are actually becoming part of the robot's AI database, in short, okay? And they don't understand the fact that when this happens, AI learns. So this is a good question. So in a real short, how does AI learn? Well, AI learns by analyzing data to look at certain patterns and make predictions or decisions. Like humans learn from experiences, right? A learning process can be categorized into supervised learning, learning from labeled data that we already know about, or unsupervised learning, finding patterns in unlabeled data and reinforcement, learning through trial and error and rewards. So, AI systems learn by processing large amounts of data, looking for relationships and patterns that can be used to make predictions and, of course, decisions. But I don't want you to think it is that easy because there's a lot more that has to go into this. I mean, a lot more, guys. Um, you know, the whole point about AI is that it continuously can improve. And if it can improve, it should make the world better. Now, I know what you're probably saying, John. How did this Claude Opus 4 resort to blackmail? Well, there might be somebody on the team that was developing the database that was helping to create the data that it gathered some data points and thought those would be okay. This is why it's really critical when you are building this type of system that you have people that you have a thorough background understanding for. Because if you don't, you know what happens? It becomes a serious problem. A really, really serious problems. I know that a lot of people out there don't realize how this can affect you. So the data that you give a system, you might say, gee, what's the big deal if I give it wrong data? Well, maybe nothing. But then again, maybe something, right? And so as we communicate with systems out there through a variety of different data, I mean, we could be talking something as simple as, I don't know, putting together a process for a company to follow. It could be something as simple as managing, let's say, a set of fire drills. But then how do you handle it in a manner that's not going to let people feel intimidated, but that's going to know that the system is there to help and support them? So I think this becomes a very big gray line with a lot of people because, we all remember the other movie, right? From the Terminator, how they made these robots that were suddenly controlled by an uplink. And when that was turned on, the robots overrode the programming that was originally put in, which were the three laws. And this uplink in the movie had caused the three laws to basically vanish. And that's a big, big problem. And I know that sometimes when we think about where something came from and where it's going to, there's a lot of confusion in between about how it got that way. But really, the confusion should be there because the system learns from patterns, but it learns from patterns that people give it, okay? Or information that it learns. But most of the time, it's learning from live examples, from data, from things people have created. That's how AI learns. So if there's enough skewed data out there, and that data suggests that it should do something that's not within our norms, well, then we got to be careful what type of data we feed it. We've got to make sure, I've always said this before, that there is a human in the loop, maybe more than one human. So this week, as we're talking about tech tensions, and I say tech tensions because these are things that keep people up at night. These are things that worry people. These are things that make people not want to use any bit of technology. Breakthroughs, because when we know that technology can do something better and faster, we want to do that. I'll give you an example of technology. When it comes to printing a book, we have a printing system. It's like about $175,000, $250,000. And taking that book and printing it by hand, I mean, it prints, it cuts, it folds, it staples, and it's ready to do whatever you need it to do immediately. That's pretty powerful. But if I give that system wrong information, like the wrong paper size, or maybe I give it the wrong tray, or even the wrong, let's say, action to take, like I tell it to punch when I didn't want it to punch, I'd have a mess. Or maybe my bleed ratio is wrong. I mean, there could be a ton of things. So data, guys, is all around us, no matter who we are, no matter what we're doing. Data is everything we are breathing and living every single day. And I know that you're probably saying to me, John, like, this is a little bit nuts. I hear you that it's nuts. But I guess what I want to kind of put you at ease is, so why is AI not going to rule the world? This is not a 2-minute answer, but AI needs to have humans in the loop. I've said this many, many times. That whole concept, it's not likely. And the reason I say it's not likely is because if you have humans directly involved with what's going on, then you're able to make a change in how it processes data, what it does with data. I mean, I think those are some pretty amazing things, guys. But for whatever reason, they don't seem like, they're going to support what everybody wants. They don't seem like they're going to support what everybody wants. And so what I want to tell you is that when you get fearful about AI is not the only thing that can cause you a challenge. AI can help you too. But I think it's the fear of the unknown, the fear of like what we don't know, thinking that can hurt us. And I understand why people can like take that caveat. It's very simple. It's because people don't understand that everything in life starts with a thought. It's an evolution. We move from point A, we don't get to point Z. We go to other points, and we might not go in order. But when we have a logical understanding of what we want to do, like this whole thing about Claude, I know they're blaming it on the data, but I have to tell you, somewhere in the loop, somewhere in one of their engineers, let's say, resources that they have, somebody in there is disgruntled. Somebody in there purposely put some data because they've studied AI learning, and they studied that if you do this, it'll get the system to make this change, and I don't have to do it directly. See, that's how this works, guys. All right. I hope you guys have a fantastic evening, and I'm going to catch you real soon. Have a great week, everyone.